All right, and I'm going to pass it on to Zavit.
Hi, everyone. Good to have you here again. I'm Zivit. I'm Kaleidoscope Play and Learn Program Coordinator um, from CCR Childcare Resources in Seattle.
Hi, this is Kimberly speaking, Family Engagement Specialist at the Kaleidoscope program.
Hi, Nicole. I'm also a Family Engagement Specialist for Childcare Resources.
Hi everyone, my name is Zainab and I am the Admin and Data Specialist.
Just a reminder, why are we here today? Again, to provide you updated resources to support and connect, share information and updates. Continue, of course, to build this community, a wonderful community of facilitators and coordinators. And to have a discussion and reflection on what you're doing right now and what are the changes in your scope of work. And if you have any needs or questions, we would love to hear that. The agenda for today, we'll go over the objectives. We have also a few updates on COVID-19. Just wanted, I would share a few important resources. We'll have some updates on KPL Groups, especially the reporting that is coming up. And then Kim will talk about how children are impacted by crisis in general and specifically to COVID-19. Activity ideas, resources, and we'll leave some time to share and to raise questions. So the objectives. Facilitators, affiliate families, and communities receive support needed. Keep up to date and stay informed with important resources or ideas that you can then take to your families. Learn from the evolving COVID-19 situation together. There's a lot that we can learn from each other and from your experiences, and focus on our community strengths. A few updates regarding COVID-19. I want to remind everyone that Childcare Resources is also operating the Childcare of Washington Family Center, and this is the phone number that that families who are in need could call. And actually, the Family Center is dealing right now with everything regarding childcare. If essential worker needs to find childcare, or other people needs to find childcare, if the childcare provider had closed, or you want to ask a question about subsidies. So this is the number to call. And also, I want to mention that Ramadan had started a few days ago, and there is a really good resource here that I attached the link to from the Somali Health Board in King County, and it's a long but really nice and resourceful webinar on Ramadan during the pandemic. So if it's relevant for your communities, please share this webinar. Another resource that I wanted to share with you is a new service that is now provided by UW and Harborview. And this is a new service in Seattle for community testing. And it's especially for people who doesn't have any medical provider, or they are in vulnerable situations or in high risk. So I attached the flyer, but we also have it in other languages, and we will maybe attach it to the email that you will get at the end of this webinar. So we have it in Chinese, Amharic, Vietnamese, Tigrinya, and Spanish. So please share it with your communities.
Okay, so just wanted to remind you all that we are tracking attendance for virtual KPL groups. The link has not been sent out yet because we're still trying to fix and add more questions onto the survey. So until that's finalized, we will get that out to you. Yeah. And yeah, this is just a sample of how the survey is gonna look like. It is pretty simple. Yeah, simplified it. If you have any questions regarding it, just let me know in the comments, in the chat box or the Q&A box. And yeah, that'll be sent out soon, next week, hopefully.
Okay, so if no one has any questions about the updates Savit and Zainab just went through, we will continue on with the next section, which is on how children are impacted by crisis. So in the poll that we had you all fill out about a couple weeks ago, we had asked what topics you'd be interested in for this webinar, and this was one of them. So we'll talk about how children are impacted by crisis, specifically during this pandemic of COVID. We'll talk about what is crisis, impacts on children, what adults can do. We'll chat a little bit about children with special needs and resiliency as well. So on the next page, we just wanted to pause and take a moment to define what crisis is. And it can be defined as a time of intense difficulty, challenges, and or danger. So while that may look like a natural disaster or an emergency, and a child may experience in their life, it could be just in general some kind of change in that child's life that brings some kind of challenge or stress that impacts them in some way. So definitely during this time of COVID, a lot of lives of children have changed in some way or another, and they very likely need some support during this time. So to start, something that we wanted to pose to all of
that you don't have to find the actual number, you can use the approximate values.
I'm not sure if that was a question or if someone maybe needs to be muted. I didn't catch that. Zainab, are there any questions in the chat box?
No, there's no question. I think that was just someone who needed to be muted.
Okay. So something that we wanted to ask all of you is, how do you think a child would respond to crisis in their life? Or how do you think they would be impacted? So go ahead and chime in if you have something to add, or type in the chat box, and we can have a little discussion on this.
This is Teresa. I can give a couple ideas about how children might deal with crisis.
Thank
I
you.
think, oh, okay. I wonder if just like for adults, it could look very different. For some kids, it might be regressing in behaviors or skills that they once had mastered. It might look like aggression. It might look like withdrawal. So those were just the three things that I thought that it might look like. But again, I think, depending on the child and their home environment, I think it will look different for a lot of different kids.
Thank you, Teresa. I agree there. I think it will be very dependent on the child and the environment that they're in.
Yeah, we have some comments. A child will act out in frustration, tantrums, act insecure, scared, not leaving the parent or caregiver. They might respond by acting out, crying, constantly seeking attention. Some might stay quiet. Some will have more tantrums or tend to be more clingy. Or someone said it might look like sleep pattern changes or control.
Thank you. Yeah, we jotted down some notes on our end on how children may respond to crisis, and they're very much aligned with what Zainab just read out loud about children being more emotional, upset, having behavioral changes, acting out, shifts in attitude. These are all things that are also dependent on the age of the child. So for example, for infants to maybe about 2 years old, like it has been mentioned, we may see more crying and more crankiness, or in general, just a need for more like attention, more cuddles, wanting more interaction. And then as a child is a little bit older, like 3 to 6 years old, maybe like preschool, kindergarten age, they may be exhibiting or processing of a crisis in different ways. So they may have more toilet accidents, bedwetting. They may be frightened of being separated from their parents or caregivers. And as it's already been mentioned, changes in sleep and tantrums as well. Other types of signs would include like body pains, like stomach aches or constipation. That can also come up. Something that we wanted to highlight in terms of children processing crisis and just being impacted by it is that these changes, these incidences are normal for them to respond in this kind of way. And we want to support all of you in talking to the families in your program that it's okay, and that adults can be here to support children during this process and acting in a very supportive and loving way, as opposed to being angry or upset about it. These are just very natural things that children do when they respond to crisis. Are there any other comments, Zainab?
Yes, we had a really good one saying, depending on the age of the child and the level of information being provided by the family, babies will feel it and could be crying a lot, or if the household is very tense, toddlers may be withdrawn or very aggressive or disobedient. The household is in turmoil. Others could be assured and feeling safe and happy if they have been told by the parent that everything's okay and will make it through. If families are spiritual, they may use their faith to reassure their children security and a sense of peace.
These are great, thank you. And the last pieces you talked about, how adults can respond, we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I really appreciate the spiritual piece as well. Thank you for sharing that. On the next slide, Nicole, we go into listing some examples of like the changes that may be happening right now in a child's life that would be resulting in these types of changes in their behavior and how they're acting. And so this is not a complete list at all. It's just to give some ideas about what kids are going through right now. So they may be showing changes because they don't have the same primary caregiver right now. It may have changed during this time of COVID. Their social lives have changed. They may not be going to school anymore or attending their early education offerings, such as their KPL group. Their home environment may have changed. Maybe there are more adults around and it's very crowded. Their routines and schedules may be changing and fluctuating because of the different regulations in society right now, or because changes in their caregivers' job routines. Their level of stress may have changed, as well as how they're coping and processing. And then, of course, during this time, their access to food and other basic needs may have shifted during this time as well. Can anyone think of anything else maybe that isn't on this slide that a child may be going through right now? Yes, Brooke, I think your hand is raised.
I was just gonna mention that I think that when we're kind of thinking about like kids and toddlers and people in crisis, like our brains are in like fight or flight or freeze mode, and it can be really difficult to learn new things or kind of tap into that kind of higher mental faculties. And so I just think that keeping that in mind as parents are trying to teach their kids new things or trying new activities, that it just might not go as smoothly as usual, and it's nothing to do with like the parents teaching. It could have a lot to do with just like what's going on in their kids' brains right now.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Definitely brain development during this time is something that we'll talk a little bit more about later, because we all know that the brain is developing at such a high rate right now during this time, and it's definitely being impacted by these changes. Thank you, Brooke. Anyone else?
Yeah, Sue commented that sick family members fear about cough or sneezes, allergies, standing, or being fearful that it's the virus. Depends on the age, of course.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point.
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment, because I think even as adults, if we need to be out at the grocery store and someone sneezes or coughs, I think we're even like nervous about that.
Yeah.
So and for a child to see that, they might not quite understand the differences, like Sue said,
Right.
about allergies and
Right.
sick, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a whole other layer of social nuances and confusion and misunderstandings that people are navigating right now that is hard to navigate as an adult, let alone as a child. So that's definitely a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. And on the next slide, Nicole, we posted a link here to a podcast. We usually have videos and articles, but we were able to find this podcast from Harvard University Center of the Developing Child, and it is a 20-minute interview with a specialist who talks about child development during this time of COVID specifically. And so if you have some time and would like to learn more and just kind of be wrapped up in this topic a little bit more deeply, I encourage you to take a look at it or to listen to it when you have some time. And the reason why we're sharing it is because just like Brett had mentioned, during this time, brain development is, it's always important. Maybe it's at the forefront of our minds right now because the stress being experienced during this crisis can be impacting the brain development of the young ones that adults are caring for. And it's important to remember that there's good stress that exists, like maybe an anxiety you take before you take a test, but there's also bad stress in people's lives. And when that bad stress is reoccurring and has pattern-like occurrences, that stress can impact brain development, particularly birth to 5, and that's important to keep in mind. I also want to emphasize that when caregivers are stressed, like as we all are right now as adults during this time, it can impact the ability of that caregiver to adequately respond to a child, and that impacts their growth and development. So this is just another reminder to take care of yourself as an adult so that you can care for others. This video that we're about to watch will talk about that a little bit. It's a video on the next slide about how children are impacted by stress. And before we start the video though, does anyone want to say anything, or are there any comments?
Yes, we have a question of you could share the link for the podcast separately.
Yes, I can. We can do that in the email that we send out at the end. For sure.
For healthy brain development, a child needs to feel secure and protected. Stress can have long-term effects on the developing brain. It can also create health issues for the heart and the immune system.
Any baby who has too much stress will react badly. What happens is that our brain circuits that deal with stress and anxiety and fear or anger, the kinds of things that we experience when we're stressed, will learn to fire more frequently. And then we learn to deal with new things that come along as if they were stresses, as if they were threats. One of the things that happens is that our endocrine system, our hormones change. We get more of a hormone called cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And that clearly affects the way the brain is wired up, and it also affects the rest of our body. So there is evidence, for example, that babies who have a lot of stress in their first couple of years end up in adulthood with more heart problems, more heart attacks and things like that. So the effects are intense and they're very long-lasting. Clearly, things like anger and violence are hard on babies. So is deprivation and being left alone for too long. There are other kinds of things like disputes between parents, or violence in a home, or divorce, or illness in a parent, or violence in a neighborhood. All of these things can cause stress directly to the baby if he's exposed to it, but they also affect the baby because they affect the caregiver. And if a caregiver is very stressed, it's hard for the caregiver to be able to respond effectively, sensitively to the baby in ways that reduce the baby's stress. There are a couple of things that parents can do when they recognize stresses in the home that might affect the baby. One is to think about how they can protect the baby from those experiences. So if you expect somebody to be coming in and causing a big fuss in the house and a lot of fighting, maybe it's a good time for the baby not to be there. Parents can also learn how to disagree in ways that are less stressful for those around them. Other kind of thing to think about is how are the stresses affecting you as the caregiver for the baby, and taking a little bit of time and stepping back and getting yourself regulated so that when you're with the baby, you can regulate the baby.
Being a parent is not easy.
So I liked this video because he gave some tangible pieces of advice on how you can prevent stress from impacting a little one at home. And I think that the examples he gave of stressors in the home happen normally. And then I think during this COVID pandemic, with stay-at-home orders and people being at home more often, those stressors can possibly now be amplified in the home setting and in a child's life. So that's something to keep in mind during this time, and a few simple ways to help mitigate that stress if that's possible. I think we have a comment from Helen.
Yeah, she said some children and families, particularly of Asian descent, are experiencing exclusion and feelings of being othered in the community during COVID-19.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Helen. That is definitely true, like locally, domestically, and internationally, and the amount of stress that can add to like a person and a family and how that would impact a child is definitely very significant. And that is a huge topic in itself. So we really need to make sure that we're doing what we can to take care of ourselves and each other to help mitigate that type of stress that's being caused by that. Thank you for bringing that up, Helen. I think, Brooke, do you have your hand raised? Or is that an old notification? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think she just had it up. She put it back down.
Okay.
Sorry, I pushed it by accident.
No, it's okay. I just want to make sure that you got a chance to speak if you wanted to. So on the next slide.
Easy. There are ways to get.
We wanted to talk about play a little bit because as kids are processing this pandemic and the changes in their life, they're going to process in different ways and express themselves in different ways. And we all know that they are going to do that one way through play. So I linked this article that Nicole has shared in the past via our newsletter about how the coronavirus is influencing children's play. It's a really interesting read if you have some time. I pulled a quote from it and it said, "Play is children's language," which I really liked that statement because it's totally true. And during this time, as children are processing what they see, observe, and feel, and just trying to make sense of what's happening right now in the world with everything that's going on, they very may well express that through play. And it's really important to have a very supportive, kind of open space for them to play freely and openly in an open-ended way, and just to let that unfold naturally. And of course, as an adult, if their play becomes dangerous or if maybe they're coughing over everyone or something like that, we want to intervene to make sure everyone's safe. But generally speaking, it's important to give them the space to play and let them process in the way that they need to. So that may look like acting out COVID situations through pretend play. That may be drawings related to COVID, playing doctor, whatever it is. If you see that, you can let caregivers know that that's normal and really that it's healthy that they're processing that. I think Zavi or Nicole may have something to add to this.
I think what you just said is just so on point. And also children really during play, they have this sense of control in deciding how they want to play, what they want to play, coming up with their own, thoughts in their imagination. And having that sense of control is really important to them, especially in these situations that we're in right now. And as Kim said, they will continue to act things out, and some families might not know that that's totally developmentally appropriate. So it is great to pass that information along so that they know this is just their way of really processing this. And I know Zavit had something else. Zavit, did you want to chime in?
Yes, I just want to mention that some kids would, you mentioned the sense of control. So some kids will feel better when playing a very structured game with the rules, and they would know what to expect in this game. And some kids would prefer an open-ended game where they control all the parts in the game and they could decide on the rules. So just be minded of that.
Thank you, you too. So play and children expressing themselves through play is really important, and we want to support that. On the next slide, we have a resource to also help adults understand how, in addition to letting children play and supporting that, how they can help children cope during this time. And I like this resource. It's a nice infographic. I think I'm just going to kind of walk everyone through it so we can capture what's being said in it. It's from the World Health Organization, and it notes that, just like we mentioned in the beginning a few slides ago, children may respond to stress in different ways, such as being more clingy, anxious, withdrawing, angry, agitated, or bedwetting. And it's important to respond to your child's actions and reactions in a supportive way, listen to their concerns, and give them extra love and attention. Children need adults' love and attention during difficult times. And so we want to be sure that they're getting that extra during this period. It's important to listen to their feelings and speak kindly and reassure them, and also to give them space to play and relax, which we just talked about. As adults, try and keep children close to their parents and family and avoid separating children and their caregivers to the extent possible, which, depending on the situation with the 6 feet social distancing regulations, can be difficult, but we can just do what we can at this time. It's also important to keep regular routines and schedules. This was just mentioned as well by Sylvie and Nicole. This helps foster some stability during this time of change. And also we want to let you know that it's important to have communication with your child and explain in very clear ways about what's going on and about COVID and what is happening. So having that healthy dialogue is really important as well. This is something that can be found online, this infographic, if you want to share it electronically with your participants, and the link to that is also on the slide, which we can also send out separately in addition to the podcast link if you would like. And so we've talked about how children are impacted by crisis and how it may emerge. We also want to take a pause and realize that every child is different and developing differently. And we also need to think about children's special needs during this time. Here is just some more resources about how to support children's special needs during a time of crisis and a time of disaster and a time of trauma. I also wanted to open up this discussion to all of you to see your insight and knowledge and how you think children may be impacted during this time, specifically those with special needs, and how as adults we can support them.
We have a comment from Sue saying caregivers may offer a talk with children if they want to be heard what they have in mind.
Thank you, Sue. It's again, the importance of that communication is really good to emphasize. Anyone else? Yes, Brooke, please.
Hey, everybody. So I work with the early intervention agency for kids 0 to 3. And I think that most families and kids, or families with kids who have special needs, really need mostly the same thing that any other kids need. The difference might be that maybe some of the creative solutions to activities or entertainment or ways to spend time together might have an extra layer of, how can we figure out a way to make this work? And I think maybe just remembering that a lot of support agencies are still providing services for families and kids with special needs. I think that the other thing that comes to mind is maybe the isolation is a little bit, could be more intense. Some kids with special needs might not do very well with a virtual platform, and so their friend group might be reduced drastically, but they still have those needs. So maybe just thinking about that and how those extra limitations could increase the isolation for that kiddo or their family.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that is really something to think about as a facilitator as you are figuring out virtual ways to keep your group connected. And sometimes, depending on the needs of the family, the virtual platforms may not be what works best for them. So I think it's important to, again, open to like everyone in your group to connect with them and figure out during this time, what is it that families are needing that you may need to adjust or maybe give someone individual attention separately or virtually outside of the main group to make sure that their needs are getting met.
Yeah, we have some comments.
Thank you.
Keeping a structured routine and explaining what is happening next, and connecting parents of kids with special needs to other parents with children.
Yes, definitely building that social support network for them is important.
And we have a resource that you put out of a helpful webinar about bystander response to anti-Asian discrimination.
Yes, thank you for suggesting that. That has been on my mind lately, so we will definitely explore that more. And at the end of this webinar, we'll also have some designated time to offer you all time to think about what next topics would be most helpful for you. So thank you for that feedback.
I just want to add, this is Evit. I just want to add regarding kids with special needs. I totally agree with the focus on routine, even more, all kids need it right now, but even more kids with special needs. And I want to go back to what Brooke had mentioned before, that regarding the learning process, that might be different right now with all the stress. So it's something that also happened with special needs, with kids with special needs. And I think that in general, I think that families with kids with special needs should focus now on maintaining achievements and not set new goals. And of course, if they are in therapy, they should contact their therapist. But I don't think it's the time to work on new goals wherever you are on the therapy plan.
Thank you, Savi. Nicole, did you have something that you wanted to add at all to this?
I think you all kind of covered it. I think what immediately came to my mind was schedules and just change in general, and how a lot of children with special needs have specific schedules at their school or at their preschool or at their, maybe they're doing half of their time with a caregiver and a little bit of time somewhere else. And just like, or maybe they do have a schedule at home, but now it's a little bit different. So I think that's what immediately comes to mind is, are those changes in schedules. And I really like what Zavit was talking about not really coming up with like new goals, not adding something because there's already so much happening. And then just to remember that this is just hard times. So for all children, and with special needs children, they're on a set schedule, and some little bit of change can really, really cause a lot of anxiety. And so, yeah, I mean, you all already said most of those things.
I think the schedule and routines keeps coming up. I think it was Sucheta that just brought it up before you spoke about Nicole, and it came up a number of times in the past slides. And I think that is really evident that is such an important thing right now for children, all children, and in particular children with special needs. So maybe that's something we can all like reflect on and explore a little bit about how we can talk about that with caregivers during this time, about how we can support kids in their schedules, because I think that will continue to come up as we move through this pandemic, and schedules will change again once things start opening up and people's lives slowly return back to normal. And I think it's something that's going to be a long-term thing on our minds. So just something to think about. Okay, looks like my voice is breaking out, so hopefully it will stop. I hope everyone can hear me okay. On the next slide, I wanted to kind of wrap up this section on talking about resiliency. So we talked about crisis, how children are impacted, what adults can do, and needs of children with special needs. And all in all, every child is going to need some support in building their resiliency. And before we talk about this, I wanted to ask all of you, how would you define resilience?
You have a comment. Someone said perseverance.
Yes, that's a great word.
Ability to bounce back. The ability to thrive despite adversity. The ability to follow through difficult times.
These are all great.
Going through hard times using tools you have in community. Being able to weather whatever is thrown your way. Having faith that this too shall pass and you are stronger because of it. Knowing things will get better eventually and not getting lost in the hard part of its tragedy.
These are wonderful definitions. They're much better than the ones that I put on this slide. Nicole, can you go ahead and I think if you click a few times, there should be some text that comes up.
Sure. I just wanted to bring something up real quickly, Kim.
Yeah.
All of you in the chat, if you do want your comments to be read by everyone in the chat, you'll have to go to the little button, all panelists or all attendees and panelists. If you can go ahead and switch that when you're making a comment, that would be great. If you wish for your comment not to be seen, that's fine too. Just wanted to let you all know that.
We're all going to be Zoom experts by then. So
hey, we're all learning, right?
Yeah, we're all learning. Okay, so we had some examples of what resilience is, very much related to what all of you had said. The capacity to bounce back after a challenge, a tragedy, a difficulty, how well a person can adapt after life events, and the ability to mentally and emotionally cope during crisis. So it looks like we're all on the same page about what resilience is. The next video that we want to show you is on the next slide, and it's short. It talks about more about like what is resilience from more of like kind of like a scientific perspective. So we'll watch that. So was that video, how did that feel? Was that helpful in understanding resilience? I think I think resilience is a word that's used a lot, and I don't really know how often or how much people have experience with it talking to caregivers or in their own lives with the children they care for, building resilience.
Yes, a lot of them said that they thought it was helpful.
Oh, good. Okay. But it talked a little bit about the importance of like the relationship between the caregiver and child and establishing a foundation of resilience. And here is a link to on this slide on building resilience. It's from 0 to 3. I personally love 0 to 3. I think their resources are so like poignant and timely with what's going on in society, and they offer really great tips. On a daily basis, as adults are caring for children, there are a lot of things that can be done to build a child's resiliency. And for example, teaching self-care and taking care of yourself is really important. Imparting that on the child, but also as an adult, setting an example and taking care of yourself is really important. Emphasizing the positive, reading together. Books are a great tool to open and support conversations about feelings and difficult life experiences, about what's going on in the family. Encouraging social skills and encouraging children to build their networks of people that they love and their friends. Maintaining a daily routine. Again, routines have come up again. That is really important in times of change to have that structure and stability. Nurturing positive self-esteem, practicing self-reflection, which can help with coping and processing, as well as expressing feelings through different mediums like art. These are some examples, definitely not a full list. Is there anything that anyone wants to add to this? Maybe something that you already talk about with your participants, or something that you do already with a child in your life to promote resilience?
This is Teresa again, and you mentioned it, the idea of feelings, and I think using the words of like disappointment, I can see that you're disappointed, or so that they're starting to get more of a menu of the types of feelings that they may have. And I think sometimes just even labeling them and recognizing we don't need to rush through those feelings also helps to, and that it is okay to be disappointed. There isn't anything wrong with that. That's something that happens to everybody. I think helps build resilience.
Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
I learned recently like a few sayings from a class Nicole and I are taking, and it's you have to name it to tame it. So naming a feeling is really important in managing it, and then you have to feel it to heal it, meaning that we have to let our emotions run through us in order for us to get through it. And I think that's really great advice to help a child understand, but also as adults too. Like all of what we're saying is, I think, very applicable to adults as much as it is to children. And if we both are intentional, child and adult alike, in addressing that, I think the child caregiver dyad could be really, really strong and blossom during this time.
We had a comment saying a child needs a relationship with a caring, supportive adult in their life to build these skills and be empowering for people to hear.
Yes, for sure. The magnitude of having one strong relationship for that child between an adult and child is really important. And as the video had mentioned, can help mitigate a lot of negative impacts and stressors that they may be going through. So on the next slide, I put a link to like a general page that has all sorts of resources related to COVID about building resilience, which is talked about. Also best practices during this time of crisis and self-care and whatnot. And I encourage you to like go through this site if you're wanting some more information, some more resources to share with your families that may be useful. And in the past, we shared some sources that are on the next slide about social emotional health and mental health and just addressing challenging behaviors and trauma and stress for infants and young children birth to 5. And I thought it was still really relevant for this topic as well. And just for a second time, I just wanted to share this as well and encourage you to take another look if that's something that your families are needing right now. And it also looks like Brooke just shared a source on resilience in the chat box. So definitely take a peek at the chat box if you haven't yet to see what other peers and affiliates want to share with all of us. So thank you, all of you, for that. So that concludes our section on resilience, and we're going to move toward activities for you all to share with your participants, and Libby is going to take the lead on that.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
So again, I want to share this week a game that could be used in different developmental ages. And this week I'm going to talk about the Geoboard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but there are so many variations to this game. And I love this game because it's really simple. You don't need to buy anything. You can make it very easily at home. Just use a piece of wood and nails. It's best to measure the distances between the nails and then put the nails in, but you don't, it's not necessary. And you also need some rubber bands, preferably colorful, but if you don't have it, so one color is also good. Nicole, if you can switch to the next slide. And here's an example of different variations of this game. So one is on just a piece of wood. It's not even a square. Just someone put screws in it. I think it should be like I think they measured the distances because it looks even. And the other one, this kid is not even using rubber bands, just bands that they had at home. And so this game is actually an opportunity to talk about colors and shapes and sizes. And if you have the larger boards, you can also practice letters and numbers. And I really like it because it works on fine motor skills, and you can work with this game with I think some 18 months old could do that, but maybe starting around 2 years old. And when we're talking about fine motor skills, it's especially the grasp, the pinch grasp that they need to hold the rubber band with 2 fingers or a few fingers, and stretching the rubber band, and also releasing it, which could be a challenging task for younger ones. So eye-hand coordination when you're stretching it on the board, and visual perceptual skills, especially when you're trying to create like a shape or a number or a letter. So you either copy it from somewhere else, or you have a mental representation of this shape or this letter or number that you want to create. So I really like this game. And so this is for, these were a few suggestions for maybe little ones, and for older kids around 4, 5, 6 and school age. Nicole, can you please show? Yeah. So this is a more, it's a bigger board that you can create, and colorful rubber bands. And as you can see, there is a pattern that you can challenge a child and give him a pattern that you create. Just take a piece of paper, put dots on it, and just create a pattern. So challenging the child to copy the pattern. And also you can do it as you can do it the other way around, when a child is deciding for himself on a pattern, whatever he wants to do on this board, and then you give them the paper with the dots, and they need to copy it into the paper. So this game could be a very structured game with pattern, but it could be an open-ended game when they decide what kind of pattern they want to put on it. Do you have any questions?
There's a comment saying you can also do this pattern with toothpicks, poking on the paper for fine motor and pencil grip.
Yeah, that's another great idea. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, we're gonna go into some weekly activities. Something simple this week is baby play with mirrors and yoga and movement. Mirrors, this is just super simple, but there is a link to just see what they're learning from this type of play, and also just some ideas. This can be done with any types of mirrors in the home. Even our phones have, where it looks like you could see a photo. It can be done with any, and it's just super fun for babies. Babies love looking at faces. So being able to see two faces in the mirror or just their own face, making silly faces, pointing to different features on the face is just super fun. But mirrors are also fun for all ages. I grew up in a home where my mom loved mirrors, and I just remember sitting in front of this giant mirror in our hallway at a very young age, just making faces, looking in the mirror, making faces, using shaving cream, spreading it on the mirror, and using my finger to write or draw pictures. And as I got older, I would still do it and just find other ways, like bringing like lights and just seeing different things. So that's a lot of fun to explore. The next one is yoga and movement. Really just keeping in mind that children really need movement all times, and it doesn't need to be complicated. So it can just be creating your own yoga movements, own poses of favorite animals, or maybe something that looks like a tree. It doesn't need to be complicated. So there is a link there as well that will go out with some more ideas on this. This week's book is Lori Berkner's A Story of My Feelings. This is one of my favorite books. I did not get the link for the story being read, but the story is also a song, so I was able to find her actually singing the song, which is extremely soothing for children and also for adults. I find myself listening to the song without children. It's just a really beautiful song, and talks about, all the feelings that we're having, and things that we can do with our feelings that make us feel better. And so I wanted to share that with all of you. There might be a story on YouTube, but I was unable to find one where she's actually reading it. But again, it's the same as the song. So I hope that you all can give it a listen. Some resources. We do update our resource list, so you can find it on the website, or I will also send it out when I send up the follow-up email. There's also some resources for COVID-19, and the links are also there. So we wanted to open this time for open share for all of you to discuss anything you would like, a chance for you all to connect, exchange ideas, resources, talk about different materials. Some topics to consider discussing are what you are hearing are the needs of participants and families, ways to support families and participants. So maybe some new things that you all are trying out that are really working well, or maybe some things that you've tried out that just haven't worked for you. Now is a time to kind of to talk amongst yourselves. So Zainab, if you can just check if anyone's has any questions in the chat box or in the Q&A, and if anyone has raised their hand.
Yeah, Sucheta raised her hand. Go ahead, Sucheta.
Hi, so we have started for last 2 weeks Zoom meets with our moms and with their children, and we divided them because the number was very large. So we divided 3 and 4 year olds in one group, like 2, 3 and 4 year olds in one group, and there are about 15 to 18 participants, and we go every Thursdays at 1:30 to about 2:30 for an hour. And then for 5 and 6 year olds, we have started Zoom meetings from 11:15 to like 12:15 or so. And we've separated them with like crafts and with language and math, because a lot of these kids, their preschools are off right now, and the moms are it's really hard for the moms. What we found out is how to engage these kids at home every single day. They cannot even go into the parks. They can only go into their neighborhood apartment complexes, but their apartment complexes, there is a red ribbon on the play structure and everything. So they have to get their energy out, and they have to, and the moms also want them to stimulate them mentally. So we've started some science experiments, and then we show them while the class is going on, and we show them what can they do in language and math and sounds and stuff like that, and in the math area, and then they do those activities at home and share their pictures and videos with us on WhatsApp. So that's what the new thing, and it is becoming so popular, and more mom wants to join the group because they're hearing it on by their friends and stuff like that. So I am having a really hard time keeping up with responding them back with their pictures and videos, because they feel sad if I don't respond. So, but it's been a very good positive experience for all of the time, especially for moms. But for me, it's becoming even more busier than I would take online class rather than this. Face-to-face class rather than this online class. So that's been a big challenge. And now the 0 to 2 year old moms are also requesting the same. And I'm not sure how to engage them in the Zoom from 0 to 2 year old moms. So yeah, that's where I am right now. But I know I will come up with some ideas. But if you guys, any of you have any ideas for 0 to 2, please share it with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sucheta.
So this is Ramona. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Ramona.
Here in Winston, what I'm doing is I'm doing work with the 0 to 12 month old moms, and we do have a time where we could read a book sometimes, and we sing songs, and we do an activity that may be in their lap, and we do some dancing. We talk about how that music and movement helps developmentally the child. Parents, last time we were on there, parents were sharing the books that they're reading with their children at night. So we had that sharing of, this is my child's favorite book, and these are all children that are 0 to 12 months. And then one of the moms was on there, because we do a Zoom meeting, and she has a 2-month-old, the baby's 3 months old now, and is having a hard time thinking her schedule is off because of all this. And so the other moms were sharing it with her about things that she can do. And then I also reached out to our larger Child Care Resource Center, to some of the other women who have expertise in that field, and then share that information with the mom. But really just taking a book like The First Strawberries, or Honey Baby Sugar Child. Honey Baby Sugar Child is a great book.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Ramona? I'm having a hard time hearing you for some reason. There's a little bit of static or something. You mentioned some books.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with my voice, my sound. Turn it on. Is it better?
A little bit. There's still a little bit of feedback. I'm wondering if you could also email me the books so that I could send those out as well, like to everyone, in case they also couldn't hear you.
Okay, yeah.
No, I can't hear her, but put it in the chat box if you can, the name of it.
I'll do that right now.
Thank you, Ramona.
The 2 books. So what we do is try to use a book, or I try to find resources that have music, and we do an activity with that music. And so I did this last time, because I went to the same site, on the 0 to 3, and then I also went to the Harvard site. And there was a pediatrician on there talking about baby massage. And so we did baby massage, right? Because they need that, and it helps with the tension in their body. So I'm telling them, even though they're not able to verbalize that they're maybe having some stress, they're feeling it because it's in the environment, right? And so here's a way that you can kind of get some of that stress out of them. You can oil them down, or when they wake up in the morning, or before you give them a bath, or when you're bathing them, or whatever, to down for a nap, you massage their bodies. And then you do these little exercises, moving their arms up, moving their little legs in. So we did exercises. So we had some music, we did some exercises, and we danced around the room, that kind of thing. And so the babies enjoyed it. The moms did too. So giving them some things that they can do with the baby. And then we also had that quiet time. So I played a Cherokee Nation morning song, and it was very it was good for meditation, kind of calming. It was wonderful. And I will email, I'll put that in the chat. And so we did that for about 15 minutes, where we just kind of brought the baby back down after all that, activity. We brought the baby back down. Mom bonded with the baby in the quiet time. She rubbed the baby's back. She rocked the baby, whatever she was comfortable with, and just had that time for the baby to self-regulate, bring that stuff back down. And we did that for about 30 minutes. Now, last time we went for an hour, but part of that time was conversation around things that moms are doing with children on the check-in. So that was at the end. So yeah, so that's what we've done, and it's been effective. I mean, don't overthink it. The simple stuff really works well, especially when you ask your parents, what are you doing? What would you like to do? How are you, what are some concerns that you have? And if they start talking about what they're concerned about, other moms will jump in and tell what they're doing. You ask them, what is anybody else having the same issue? What have you done? And they'll jump in and tell you. They will.
Thank you, Ramona. These are wonderful ideas. For those of you that might not have been able to hear her well, she was talking about baby massages and doing like little exercises with their legs and arms, and then really opening it up to see if caregivers want to talk to one another or have questions for one another. Really great ideas, Ramona. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Does anyone else have any ideas or things that you would like to talk about? Or maybe how things are going with your virtual KPL? Maybe some things that are going really well or things that you are finding a little bit challenging? Zainab, are there any comments in the chat box?
No, just about just wanted some suggestions on goodbye songs, and if Ramona can share the Harvard site for baby massage.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Oh.
Go ahead, Connie.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Connie.
Hi, Nicole. Just want to let you know, I got the email from the KPL follow-up email on Monday.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So you got the one that I sent. I sent a second one yesterday. So that's
you sent it to me on last week, and then I got the one on Monday.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So I want to share about what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So we are doing the virtual. So by the way, I'm from CISE. So we are doing the virtual KPL. So we noticed that there's not a lot of restriction on copyright on music. So what I'm gonna doing recently is I'm trying to make up song by myself and also try to teach the kids, like I read the book but then I don't read it in front of the camera, but I use Frailbot and other thing to kind of like performing, talk about the story, so that I don't touch the copyright law. So for like easy goodbye song, actually you can make it up. So just make it up something the kid can like shake their hands, say goodbye, or that's what I make up my goodbye song and hello song so that they can do simple movement during the virtual KPL, but not really like in person KPL we can play song, but then now I really worry about the copyright thing, so now I always make up a lot of song by myself. So easy for them to like it's very simple because we are more focused on like Cantonese, not English, so we are more focused on like in Chinese. So I make up a lot of song about in Chinese and Cantonese so that the parents can sing along with them and they don't need to worry about a copyright because I'm the one who write it.
Thank you for sharing that, Connie. That's wonderful.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Hi there. This is Marilyn, and I have a very small play and learn group at Luther Memorial Church in North Seattle. But I just want to tell everyone about a person who is in our community. That her name is Nancy Stewart. If you have never been on her site before, it's nancymusic.com. She is amazing. I love her music. The songs, many are so simple. She does a song of the month. The cool thing about it is that everything is downloadable and it's free. So you can do a song, you can tell your parents to go to nancymusic.com and download the song, and then they've got it. And I don't think there's a copyright problem because she's offering it out there to anybody and everybody to download for free. So I just wanted to share her. She's wonderful.
Thank you. Marilyn, can you put her name into the chat for me, please? So
Sure.
I don't forget. Thank you.
Okay.
We do have just a few more minutes if there's anyone else who would like to share.
I do have a request. I just want to make before people slowly start signing off because it's getting closer to 2:30. There are some facilitators out there who are still deeply supporting their participants, and those needs have changed, like resources to like food and financial assistance and whatnot during this pandemic, and they don't necessarily have the capacity to offer virtual KPL groups, even though that's something that their participants could enjoy and benefit during this time, because their attention is going more toward basic needs that have emerged during COVID. And I was asked to ask all of you if any of you who are doing virtual KPLs, like live ones on Zoom or on Facebook Live, would be interested in sharing that link so that some other facilitators could send that to their participants as well and join in on your Zoom or whatever it is, even though they may not typically be a part of your KPL group, but they may be interested in during this time to connect with others. If any of you are interested in opening up your live virtual KPLs and sharing those links, please contact us so I can connect you. I think it's really cool that these connections can be made despite geographic location because of technology today. And I just want to make sure that we're letting people know that some facilitators do need some support right now and would love to offer virtual KPLs, but just at this moment don't have the capacity right now to, but they still want to offer this somehow to their participants. So if you are interested in opening up your group to some other participants, again, please contact us and let us know so I can connect you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
We had a comment from Kay. She wanted to, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Zainab, can you say that again?
Kay wanted to share a quick song.
Oh my gosh, yes, please share.
Hi, everyone. It's Kay Marshall, and I wasn't able to be here for the whole thing, so I really do appreciate you guys making the webinars available afterward because there were 2 meetings at the same time. However, my go-to, which was maybe I made it up, I don't know. I'll take my little hand and wave bye, bye, bye. Take my other hand and wave bye, bye, bye. Take both hands and wave bye, 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 bye. See you next week. Thanks for listening.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think that might have been the first time someone offered to sing live on our webinar.
Yes, that was great.
Wonderful.
Very cute. Can I share my hello song then?
Yes, please do.
Okay, I'll share my hello song. So this is, I modified from our circle time to our Zoom time. So this is how it goes. Hello to everyone, and how are you today? We've come to our Zoom time to learn and sing and play. And when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're only halfway up, you're neither up nor down. So roll your hands so slow and roll them up so fast. And give your hand a clap, 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 and lay them in your lap. Hello, everybody. So nice to see you. That's how I go. That's how I start.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I remember you sang this song at the 101, and it really stuck, stuck in my head. It's really nice.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next slide. Moving forward, I will send the follow-up email to all of you. Like I said, we're hoping to use we're hoping to use Constant Contact to get it out to all of you so that everyone receives it. And then I will also send a reminder just to make sure that everyone did receive it. And so we are going to do the live poll. So I'm going to go ahead and make it live right now. So you all can go ahead and vote. There are 2 things to vote on. I'll give you all just a minute or so. Looks like there's, yep, All right. I'll just minimize that. Let's see. Oh, we're also going to do something kind of fun at the end. But first, if you all can change your chat box to all attendees and not just the panelists before you do this, we are wondering which one of these characters can you relate to today? So which Sesame Street character can you relate to based on their expression or maybe just their personality? So if you can just, on the count of 3, pop that number into the chat box, that would be awesome. So we'll go 1, 2, 3.
Mine says the chat is disabled.
Oh no.
Mine says the chat is disabled.
Yeah, and I think I missed the poll.
Oh, got it back.
Oh, okay.
If you missed the poll, you can email us your answer and we'll add it in.
I don't even know what the question was, I guess.
Yeah, I can send it over to you. Hang on.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, I'm gonna take a picture of it.
A lot of people are 6s.
Oh, I want to see. Thank you so much for having fun with that. We also just wanted to thank all of you for all your hard work. We know that you are all just putting in so much extra work right now, and we just really appreciate it. We appreciate you, everything that you do. Any last words, Kim?
Thank you, Nicole and Kim, so much for being here every week.
Of course, of course. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you, and see you next week.
Thank you, Nicole and Kim.
Bye, everyone.